Hello, everyone. Welcome to the beta seminar on dinosaurs and man coexistence. I believe they live together, and I'm going to provide you some compelling evidence tonight. So, if you're an up-nighter, you're on the graveyard shift, this would be a good thing to tune into because even if you don't have any eyes and you can only listen, what I'm going to be talking about is very controversial, okay, and in no way accepted by the media or prestigious scientific literature. They all say that they have examined this and it has been refuted and that all the questions have been answered, yet they haven't spent a single dime on government research to get any of this published from an objective view. In other words, they haven't investigated it. They've just simply pressed a lot of propaganda on NBC and Discovery Channel and National Geographic talking about how these human footprints with dinosaur footprints in a left to right consecutive pattern found in the same layer of strata, they would say that they are hoaxes, but they're wrong because there's no reason to refute them. They're legitimate. So we're going to share the screen now. Let me make sure no one has put anything in the comment section. If you want to join and discuss this, I've provided the link in the comment section. So just follow the link and then you can jump in the box and talk about this controversial subject. You'd be taking the red pill even if you're not getting in on the discussion, because this is you're opening Pandora's box right here for the evolutionary worldview, for what they're pushing right now in the secular literature. If this, what I am about to tell you, is true, it would overturn everything. I mean, it's like someone should have got a Nobel Prize a long time ago. So if they ain't got one by now, it ain't gonna happen unless the whole scientific community is like change. They have to reorganize the whole thing because they're gonna have to rewrite all of these books if what I'm saying is correct. Let me share my screen and we'll begin. Today, the theory that man evolved from the primates is accepted as fact by most of the scientific community. However, if normal human footprints have been found in rock that predates human evolution, this provides physical evidence that the theory of human evolution is incorrect. And by the way, I have a debate next Thursday. It got rescheduled with me and CJ Cox over at the Synagogue channel versus Snake Was Right and Tom Jump. So go over to Modern Day Debate, subscribe, and ding that bell so you can get notified when this epic debate goes down. And I'm going to provide the same evidence there as I'm providing you here, except will be a lot shorter because we only have 15-minute openings and it's between me and CJ. But the verdict track is a set of human footprints in Cretaceous limestone. They've been subjected to lapidary experts that deal with stones and gems. They cross-sectioned it and revealed that the rocks were crystallized after the prints were made, and there's clear pressure disturbance under the heels and the toes. Many photographic evidence of this pressure disturbance under the heels and the toes by the cross-sectioning. You just look up this verdict track, you can Google it and find all kinds of images. And Dr. Don Patton, who has a PhD in geology, helped determine the original location of this excavated track. It does match the geologic strata of where it is reported to have come from. The Delk print is a dino-intruded human track subjected to 800 x-rays and a CT scan procedure. Technicians concluded that the track was uncarved and unaltered. The Willet print is a human track found in 70 million year old limestone. So the Willet print, the Delk print, the Burdick track, these are all actually on display at the Creation Evidence Museum in Glen Rose, Texas. You can actually touch them. Okay. I think they may be behind glass, but I mean, it is possible for you to open the glass if he would let you, and hold these in your hands. So there's no reason to deny them. They've been subjected to as much tests as any of the other footprints that we find all over the world that nobody disputes is a human footprint, and they look identical to these prints. So the -3B track is from the Taylor Trail sequence, is where a human stepped in to a dinosaur print. And this makes sense, if you have the whole earth being covered in mud and rock from all of the water that used to be under the crust of the earth, which is most of it that we see on the surface today, coming up from the crust of the earth, releasing all of this rock and dirt and mud and spreading it across the whole earth. On top of that, you have 40 days and 40 nights of rain, which is scouring the pre-flood mountains and bringing them into the bottom of the oceans and filling the earth, from the bottom up full of mud and rock and developing sedimentary layers. And as this mud builds up, you're going to have animals trying to escape to higher ground. The human is going to step in the larger dinosaur footprint because that's, the easiest path to walk. Instead of creating a new path, you just step in the path that was already, this is a trail. So this is what happens. What appears to happen, there's no reason to deny it because there's tests that's been subjected to, and because the government, hasn't done a thing to actually make sure that this is researched and found out to be true or false. It's not been published in peer-reviewed literature. They've completely swept it under the rug by propaganda through media sources. They have a lot of money and power, and the creationist has very little money or resources, to be able to bring this to the public light. Now, the Billy Caldwell cast. Billy Caldwell is a geologist, and he has a mold of an original human track that was found in the Paluxy River bed and last reported at New York World Fair in 1965. And what I'm going to do now is just make sure that the audio is good. It seems to be good. If it's bad, make sure whoever's watching just put that in the comment section so I know that the audio isn't coming through, but it looks like it is. So we're going to continue here. Billy Caldwell, again, a geologist, has a mold of an original human track that was found in the Paluxy River bed where there was a huge flood and exposed this huge layer of limestone which had dinosaur tracks on them. And many have reported that there were human tracks in the same location within the dinosaur tracks. The Taylor Trail is that sequence of left to right consecutive footsteps. They took the Delk print, I believe, from the Taylor Trail, and it is a left to right consecutive pattern. There is photographic evidence of that. In the Paluxy River bed, this is where they found the original human track that was last reported in the New York World Fair in 1965. So the original, which Billy Caldwell was able to get a cast of, who's an eyewitness of it, and he's a geologist. He knows whether or not it looks legitimate or not. This is strata that contained a human footprint found at the Paluxy River in that layer of limestone where all the other dinosaur tracks are. And he got a cast of it. The original was last seen in New York's World Fair in 1965. There was another guy, Cecil Daughtry, was a paleontologist, and he wrote a book called The Valley of the Giants in 1967. The fourth edition was published. He gave descriptions, locations, and photographs of human and dinosaur tracks in over at the Paluxy River in Glen Rose, Texas, where Dinosaur State Valley National Park, I believe, is located. So Roland T. Bird, paleontologist, led an excavation of dino tracks in Glen Rose, Texas. So this guy, I think he might be a geologist, but this guy, Roland, he's a paleontologist. He led an excavation of dino tracks in Glen Rose, Texas, and is an eyewitness testimony of a human track on display with dino tracks excavated from the same area. So uh, he got this information of a human track that was on display, uh, and then, or he's actually the eyewitness of it. So he saw this human track that was on display. Uh, I believe that he got that from Cecil. But anyways, Clifford Burdick is another geologist who actually traced the original track from. Uh, he traced the original tracks in Texas, which is where they were seen, to a small museum in Arizona. And then he wrote a article called "When Giants Roam the Earth," where he provided photographic evidence of the original track. There are many, many, yeah, the original tracks that have photographic, video footage, okay, detailed descriptions of the excavation. Many dinosaurs. Now, need to exit out of that. Most dinosaurs, I believe, died because of climate changes after the flood. So this is my theory on the dinosaurs. I think that they were in a perfect world before the flood. That's when most all of them were alive, and then God preserved them on an ark. Some of them, are just like lizards today. They can't grow to the full potential because you can't live to be nearly 1,000 like you were before the flood. So they were able to grow much larger before the flood, where they are today. So a lot of these dinosaurs were big lizards living in the Garden of Eden. Now, dinosaurs that made it off of the ark and were able to grow to a good size probably died because of climate changes, and probably much more were hunted. That is why you have thousands of legends of people seeing or slaying dragons. Carl Schuker's good book, Dragon: A Natural History, where all these descriptions of dragons are given, and a lot of them aren't even about a fire-breathing dragon. It's just some mysterious giant reptile creature. So the word dinosaur was invented by Richard Owen in 1841, and before that time they were called dragons. You could look it up, all those ancient legends of people slaying dragons. I'm saying that they were probably talking about dinosaurs. These were real creatures, otherwise you wouldn't have worldwide eyewitnesses telling the same story about the same animal, which they have the same name for. So the name, we'll get down to here and then I'll go back up. Name for the dinosaur. Dragon, probably an ancient term for giant, mysterious, and terrifying creatures. As they were seeing dinosaurs, I would challenge. And so that's why you don't find the word dinosaur, for instance, in the Bible, because it wasn't even invented until 1841. But the Bible does give descriptions of dinosaurs like behemoth, like a leviathan, which would be the fire-breathing dinosaur, that has wings and flies around. But not all dragons are fire-breathing and can fly. Some of them live on the ground, and they say because of the structure, on certain dinosaurs on the top, that they could actually have breathed fire. But you're not going to find the word dinosaur in the Bible, because it wasn't invented till 1841. In the Bible, they're called dragons, and they're mentioned several times in the Bible, 34 times to be exact. Dragons are mentioned in the Bible. And back to the legends of people slaying dragons, Epic of Gilgamesh. So I'm saying that most of them were hunted because of all these dragon slaying legends. You hunt them for many purposes. Let's go down to this slide here. Food, you'd hunt them. There was a lot of hamburgers in a brontosaurus, for instance. Okay, there's a lot of money to be made by poaching and taking these huge horns and these huge heads, and mounting them on people's walls. Like, of course, this is going to make a lot of money, and I'm sure people did get a lot of money from hunting these dinosaurs, putting them on display in their own little museums or whatever. You have territory. You don't want to live next to a dinosaur. You should drive all the animals away that are really big and terrifying, and that just makes sense. And normally the animals will go away because they don't generally like to dwell around human civilizations. And you would also hunt them for popularity. If there was a bear, and if there was a bear in Oklahoma, in Foyle, Oklahoma, and this is a redneck area, every redneck with their shotgun would be out there. And the next morning, if it was reported on the news that there were bears just roaming around Foyle, Oklahoma, and they would have their paper, posted on the wall at the local restaurants for everybody to see. It's like Bubba saved the village because that's just what people do. They like to gain popularity, and killing a dragon got you popularity in the ancient world when, it was a rare thing even then probably to see one of these. And so if you kill it and put it on display, just like if you were to do that today, you'd get a lot of popularity just because the fact that it's a giant, terrifying creature that everybody hears about, but they never really see. So my theory is that Noah's descendants discovering these terrible lizards for the first time, calling them dragons. They gave a term, and when everybody their languages divide, we get all these different languages. They end up coming up with their own term, but it means the same thing, and we could call it in English, we'd say that's a dragon. So Epic of Gilgamesh is a story about a guy slaying a dragon. It's a fairy tale. It's like an old ancient story, but I think it's like been dated to like older than Old Testament scripts. Not that that means it's older than the Bible. It has a legend of a flood, which it got from the original story, the true story of the flood, which it's a story that the Bible tells. Just because you can find a script of the Epic of Gilgamesh that's older than a Hebrew Old Testament does not compromise the legitimacy of the ages of the Bible, because there are other ways we can determine that, which we won't get into. But Alexander the Great reported that when he conquered parts of what is now India in 326 BC, his soldiers were scared by the great dragons that lived in caves. Beowulf killed Grendel the monster by pulling off one of his arms, and that's pretty interesting. It could have been a T-Rex. They say that if you could actually manage to get a hold of one of his arms, you could just pull it right off. That's scientific. So Siegfried is slaying the dragon Fafnir. According to the Norse legend, the dragon guarded a treasure, probably talking about a fire-breathing dragon, but other ones, like Beowulf, like the one that Alexander the Great saw living in caves, or the Epic of Gilgamesh certainly doesn't portray a fire-breathing dragon. It's just some giant, terrifying creature. So they're not all fire-breathing dragons. A lot of them are dinosaurs. It's not most of them. So, the fire-breathing dragon, I believe to be Satan, the most powerful and magnificent of the dinosaurs, one of its kind, actually. There may have been more dragons than Satan, but that's just neither here nor there. But the martyred Saint George reported slaying a dragon. This was on a 15th century cathedral tomb. Okay, it obviously looks like the the long-necked dinosaur, the sauropod, I believe is what they call it, Brontosaurus or Brachiosaurus. One of them is fake, and I keep getting confused on which of them it is. But anyways, you get my point. This was seen on the Grand Canyon. Okay, I believe you could still go see it today. These little figures were reported by Marco Polo. They appeared to be dragons. We're just scratching the surface here. We have ancient Peruvian burial stones with these dinosaurs very clearly depicting dinosaurs. Now, let me stop the share screen, and then I'm going to show you something. If you think that these burial stones are fake, it's just like, what? How can this be real? People can't handle it, but it really does have some credentials. So let me show you. This is a book called Secrets of the Ica Stones and Nazca Lines by Dennis Swift. Dennis Swift is an archaeologist by trade. And here's some pictures. So we have C-sections being performed on this stone. C-sections. There's brain surgery. There's wheeled toys that have been discovered in the area. It's like a steam train or something on the top. So they knew about wheels. Man was not, ancient man was not like primitive. We're just rebooting the information that they had back in their day, because we all came from Noah, who lived to be over 600 years old. He knew just about everything there is to know. You could learn a lot to live to be 600 years, and you could have a lot of kids too. Here we are. But anyways, two stones that have a man looking into a telescope. Okay, so Galileo didn't invent the telescope. I don't care what they say. He reinvented it. He rediscovered it, but he didn't invent it. So here's the dinosaurs here depicted on these stones. So these are burial stones. They held some kind of ceremonial. They gave the dinosaur a ceremonial exaltation. They held it up as a deity or an idol, or it held special significance to their culture, and so they would carve them in stones and then put them in the graves of their loved ones after they had passed. So put them in their tombs, and this is where these stones have been found. This is where they were all excavated from, was the ancient Peruvian burial tombs that are in the sand. Here is another dinosaur. Okay, it was obviously got this huge tail that's not like a giraffe. Okay, you look at a giraffe tail, that's not what we're looking at. That is, in fact, a dinosaur. If you've never heard of the Peruvian Nazca lines, or then rather Nazca lines, not Peruvian, Nazca lines. So these are huge shapes and stuff that were carved into the desert and can only be seen from the air. And he was able to actually find dinosaurs in these Nazca lines to picture himself. Some have questioned the legitimacy of a lot of these things, especially the stones. This is a stegosaurus on an ancient temple, Hindu temple called Top Prom, and that's still there today. Anybody, you can go see. You can stegosaurus on an ancient temple. You can Google that. I mean, it is there to this day. These stones are there to this day. There is a museum over in Peru. Dr. Cabrera, his museum is still up. I think his daughter runs it now, but you can go in there and see these stones for yourself. There's many of them. Like, he collected a lot of these stones, and they fill that entire museum. That's what it is. That's what the museum is. It's just a bunch of these stones. And they have dinosaurs depicted on them. Here is, a winged man. They were actually able to gather materials from the ancient Peruvian burial sites and construct a hot air balloon. So that would make sense. They were able to get uplift, and get airborne in order to, make sense of why they would draw these shapes on a desert. But anyways, in chapter 7, the stones give mute testimony to the fact that man walked with dinosaurs. I was certain that in the laboratory, the rocks would break that silence and communicate in the language of scientific assertion that they are ancient carved canvases. I brought these 3 stones to Mason Optical Incorporated for analysis. Mason Optical invented a revolutionary stereoscopic microscope that cost between $80,000 and $100,000. The 3 stones included in the study were fake stones carved by Basilio, so we know that some of them are fake. I mean, people come out with fake, they counterfeit dollar bills, counterfeit Super Bowl tickets, and whatnot. There's a lot of counterfeits out there. So, of course, because the controversy that these are creating at the time, people are going to try to make hoaxes and sell them, but that does not compromise the observable eyewitness testimony and the examination done by very expensive equipment on the stones. So you have a fake stone carved by Basilio, which is used in the study, of put under the examination of this stereoscopic microscope. And then you have an Ica stone from Cabrera's collection. And then you have the stone from the tomb in Rio Grande, Nazca. So this is one that Dennis Swift actually took from one of the tombs himself. And so these were all studied. And the one from Cabrera's collection, the one from the tomb in Rio Grande, are very different from the fake stone carved by Basilio. So this fake stone, the first stone, under microscopic investigation, showed very shallow incisions with small scratches and chips from the stone. Minute specks of blue metal or steel was found on the stone, and the incisions were clean and angled. There was no patina or film of oxidization on the stone. No microorganisms or saltpeter was found on the stone. The laboratory conclusion was that the stone was of recent manufacture. There are ways to tell if it's of recent manufacture, and the stone from Cabrera's collection and the one from Rio Grande, Nazca, from the tomb that Dennis Swift excavated himself, these have been subjected to the same test, and they are not of recent manufacture. They have antiquity, very clear signs that they're ancient. So the microscopic analysis of the Cabrera rock, or Ica stone, revealed it had a fine patina covering the grooves and incisions of the stone. There was dirt and sand embedded in the crevices of the stone, including some of the incisions. The natural oxidization had slightly colored the incisions so that they did not have a bright white look. No evidence of modern tool usage or minute metal particles were found. The laboratory conclusion was that the engravings on the stone were not recent, but of some age. Now, the third stone from the tomb at Rio Grande, Nazca, was examined under the stereo zoom microscope. This stone had a heavy coat of patination and oxidization. Microorganisms could be seen in the grooves of the incisions, and there is a uniformity of coloration and weathering. The incision and cuts are dark and weathered as the rest of the stone. There are several thick concentrations of saltpeter that are so full of salt buildup that it covers part of the carving with a white layer obscuring the image below, and the serrations and slight fissures in the grooves. This could only happen over a considerable period of time with the change of heat and cold through the seasons in the desert. Now I'm going to go to another part in this book. Let me find it. Page 16. In 1562, Spanish explorers sent some of the stones back to Spain after discovering them in Peru, and the Indian chronicler Juan Santa Cruz Pachusuti Lamaque wrote, at the time of the Inca Pachusatec, many carved stones were found in the kingdom of Chinca and the Chincayunga, which was called Manco. Chincayunga was known as the low country of the central coast of Peru, where Ica is located today. Some of these were taken back to Spain in 1562, according to Dr. Cabrera, who, and you can read in this book, there's the name of the Spanish article that covered this, and it's written in Spanish, so if you can read Spanish, you can read it for yourself, how these Spaniards took these stones back to Spain. So Dr. Cabrera also desired to have the riddle of the stone's antiquity confirmed by independent laboratory tests. In May 1967, he selected 33 stones from his collection and took them to Louis Hochschild. Hochschild was a vastly knowledgeable mining engineer and vice president of the Mauricio Hochschild Mine Company, Lima, Peru. In June of 1967, a report came back from the laboratory in a document signed by geologist Eric Wolf. The document states, "This is unquestionably natural stone shaped by alluvial transport river rock. Petrologically, I would classify them as andesites. Andesites are rocks whose components have been subjected mechanically to great pressure, which causes chemical change to take place. In this case, this affects the intense sericitation." Let's get past that. The stones are covered with a fine patina of natural oxidization, which also covers a bruise by which their age should be able to be deduced. I have not been able to find any noticeable irregular wear on the edges of the incisions, which leads me to suspect that these incisions or etchings were executed not long before being deposited in the graves or other places where they were discovered. So you can read this book for yourself and come to your own conclusion, but I have no reason to doubt that these are legitimate stones of antiquity, especially considering that they've not been covered in a peer-reviewed journal, so they haven't even looked at it. Even they're saying that they did look at it, that's just propaganda. They didn't look at it. Okay, you find me a journal that looks at that evidence that I just showed you and covers that evidence and tries to repeat it in an experiment, because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to repeat experiments. If somebody is claiming something about how they took, 800 x-rays of the delt print where a dinosaur stepped into a human footprint, if they took that and subjected it to 800 x-rays in a CT scan procedure, you should probably go and do that yourself before you try to claim that it's a hoax. Now, shouldn't you? If you're going to be a scientist, for goodness sake, it's not right, okay? This is not morally correct for them to say that these are hoaxes if they haven't put them to, blind tests and, repeated the experiments. So let's get back to the share screen. We're going to finish out this presentation. Thank you for all who are joining. Still get into this discussion anytime by following the link I've provided in the comment section. So again, this is Stegosaurus on an ancient Hindu temple. I forget what these are called on the right. These were found in New Mexico somewhere, and some ancient archaeological excavation, of a old city, and it had these artifacts in it, and they clearly depict dinosaurs. Especially this one right here. It's a guy riding on a Stegosaurus, and there's no reason to believe that it is not of antiquity. So I believe many dinosaurs died because of climate changes after the flood, and then much more were hunted for food, money, territory, popularity, and there could be some still alive. The Congolian swamp in Africa is about 50,000 square miles, and it's like the largest swamp in the world, mostly, uncharted territory and unexplored. So a lot of creatures could be hiding in there, and the locals give reports of a creature they call Mokilium bimbe, and the descriptions match a long-necked dinosaur. You could show them many pictures of different creatures, and they won't say that any of them are Mokilium bimbe, but as soon as you show them, a textbook photograph, picture of a sauropod, they immediately identify as this creature that they say they commonly see. Locals in Kenya, Africa report these pterodactyl-like creatures that fly through the sky at night and then come down and dig people's bones up. If you don't bury them deep enough, these things will come and dig up your dead and eat them. So they're like vultures. In New Zealand, this was pulled up 1977. A lot of people claimed that it was a baskin shark, but the actual guy who examined it and did a sketch said that it was a plesiosaurus. It's a dinosaur. So the dragon is just an ancient term for giant, mysterious, and terrifying creature. This was people identifying with dinosaurs because they saw them, because they lived with them. They lived with them before the flood and after the flood, and these things went extinct sometime after the flood, probably due to humans. Any exotic creature like that would be endangered today because of humans if they were living in a place where poaching runs wild. There's all kinds of creatures that are endangered today just because of poachers, and dinosaurs would be the top of that list if they were still around. So I have good reason to believe that these creatures went extinct from climate change and hunting after the flood, and that there may be some of them still alive. And that concludes the presentation for the beta seminar on dinosaur and man coexistence. If anybody wants to join and say anything, you're welcome to follow the link and then jump in the box and say any words that you would like. The floor will be all yours, but if not, we will end this broadcast for the night. So we'll take a quick intermission, wait for anybody to join that wants to join, and then if not, we will close it down. All right, thank you for tuning in, and make sure to check out that debate next Thursday on Modern Day Debate, the dinosaur and man debate between me. It's going to be me and CJ versus Snake Was Right and Tom Jumps. That's going to be epic. Thanks everybody for watching. Stay blessed. I'm out. God bless.